Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera to all students. Okay, let us continue on this exercise, Eco-Dynamic Berhad. In this video, we are going to continue on preparing the next component of the financial statement, that is statement of changes in equity. So basically, we need to know that this statement will summarize the items that affecting the equity component only. What we have learned so far is that the equity of company comprised of two main items. They are share capital and reserves. So let us prepare this statement by gathering the information needed first. So based on this question, we have identified and allocate all of these items into the correct element and into the respective statement. Therefore, based on the summary, we have found out that there are only two main items to be reported under SoCIE, and they are ordinary share, which represent item under share capital, and retained profit, which represent the item under reserves. As for dividend, it is also part of the item to be reported in SoCIE, and it is to be adjusted under retained profit. Okay, let us start prepare the statement by making the heading. The first line will be the name of the company, Eco-Dynamic Berhad, and the next line is the title of the statement, that is Statement of Changes in Equity, and we use the phrase for the year ended 31st December 2003. Why we use the phrase for the ended? Because we are going to report the changes of the equity throughout the year. Okay, after we have prepared the heading and the table, next is to report the opening balance of each of the item under equity. We start by recording it as balance brought down. So where to get this amount? Refer back to the question. So this amount will represent as the opening balance in statement of changes in equity. So pick up this figure, ordinary shares 650,000, and record it in the table of SoCIE, and repeat the same process for retained profit. Yeah. Okay, the next step is to report the changes throughout the year. How to report the changes throughout the year? We need to identify for any additional contribution or for any withdrawal towards the equity. So the additional contribution will be added up while the withdrawal will be deducted or will be minus from the item of equity. So let us refer to the additional information of the question to find is there any adjustment to be made. Okay, based on the additional information number 1 until number 6, we have to look up for any transaction that may relate to the increase or decrease in the ordinary share capital during the year. How to identify? So we have to recall what we have learned in chapter 3 and chapter 4 regarding issuance of shares and share buyback. So is there any item that relate to the issuance of ordinary shares or the purchase of ordinary shares during the year? Okay, clearly starting from additional information number 1 and number 6, there is no item or transaction that mention any shares has been issued or any shares has been purchased during the year. Therefore, we don't have any changes on OSC during the year. Okay, the final step is to compute the ending balance. Since we don't have any changes, therefore the ending balance or the balance carried down will be the same as per balance brought down of the ordinary share capital, that is 650,000. Okay, now move to the next column, retained profit. We are going to repeat the same process. After we have found out the opening balance, we are looking for the changes. Okay, again, we are going to refer to the additional information. Okay, but before that, in part 1, we have already prepared the statement of profit or loss. Do you still remember? Yes. In the statement of profit or loss, after we match all the revenue and expenses for the year, we have derived to profit after tax. So this is the profit for the year, amounted 184,946 ringgit. So how to report this profit? So this profit will be added up, okay, to the retained profit of the company. So the retained profit so far is 325,000. So profit for the year will be accumulated to this opening balance. But if the company have loss during the year, the amount need to be deducted. Okay, so I hope you clear on that. Okay, the next item we have to look up is the dividend. Is there any dividend declared or paid during the year? Okay, yes, if we refer to the additional information, number 3 and number 4, these two transactions relate with the dividend. Okay, now talking about dividend, let us recall what we have learned in last class about dividend. Okay, based on this note, dividend can be divided into two categories. One is dividend that is spent by the company, and the other one is dividend that being received by the company. We go to the first one. Dividend may also received by a company as a return of their investment in other organization or in other company. So if the company receive any reward in terms of interest income or dividend income, this item should be reported in statement of profit or loss under income from investment. So how to know whether there is any dividend income during the year? Okay, you may go back to the question. So in this question, in the trial balance, it shows that the company has received investment income, but it does not mention whether in terms of dividend or interest. However, as we have learned, income from investment may be in the form of dividend or interest income. So one of the guideline to identify whether dividend is income or expense, we have to look for the debit or credit column. If the dividend stated in the credit column, it shows that the dividend is in form of income, because credit column shows the item reported for revenue. But if the dividend is reported under debit column, so we must know that the dividend represent here is the dividend expense by the company, because debit column represent the expenses item. Yes, good. Alright, now back to this notes. Another type of dividend is dividend expense by company. Okay, this type of dividend is actually a dividend expense by a company. So it refers to a sum of money that being paid by company to its shareholders as a reward for their investment in the company. Okay, this one is dividend that received by the company, right? And this part is dividend that being paid by company to its shareholders. So basically, when company earns a profit, it will retain or accumulate the profits in retained earning. Okay, this is what we have done. So when company have profit, they will retain that profit. So it is considered as part of the saving of the company. Later on, the company may use this saving or this money for other activities, such as making additional investment, to repurchase its shares in the open market, or to pay dividend. Therefore, when the retained profit is used to pay for dividend, it is usually called as a distribution of profit. Okay, so basically, when the shares dividends are paid out of the profit, it is usually called as a distribution of profit. These cash dividends, okay, is not company's expenses which need to be shown under statement of profit or loss, except for dividend for RPS holder. Instead, it will show up as a reduction in the company's statement of changes in equity, because the impact is that it will reduce the size of the retained profit. Okay, this dividend then can be further divided into two types: interim dividend and final dividend. both dividends are available for ordinary shares and preference shares. So in this case, the interim and final dividends both need to be deducted from retained profit. Thus, the deduction is presented in statement of changes in equity, except for dividend on RPS, as I mentioned just now, because dividend on the RPS holder considered as finance cost of borrowing. So it is part of the cost that incur in running the business day to day. So it shall be reported under SOPL, not under SoCIE. Okay, back to the interim and final dividend. What is interim dividend? Interim dividend refer to the dividend that declared and paid to the shareholders during the financial year, usually in the middle of the year lah. Okay, while the final dividend refer to the dividend that declared at the end of the financial year, or it may also declared after the end of the financial year. And this final dividend is then will be accounted as the final liability in the statement of financial position. Okay, now let us continue by identifying the interim and final dividend for this question. Okay, back to the question just now. Additional information number 3 require us to identify the final dividend for RPS and ordinary shareholder. And additional information number 4 explain the composition of the interim dividend, where 40% out of this is represent the ordinary share dividend. Okay, based on this information, let us identify both interim and final. Okay, first we start with the interim dividend. Total interim dividend for the year is 4,200. Therefore, we have to break down into OSC and RPSC. OSC, as mentioned in the question, represented by 40%. Therefore, the amount is 1,680 ringgit, while the balance represent for RPSC. Okay, the interim dividend for OSC will be reported under statement of changes in equity, as it is a distribution of profit, while the dividend for the RPSC will be reported under statement of profit or loss, because it is one of the finance cost of borrowing of the company. Okay, as for the final dividend, we calculate for the ordinary share capital. As mentioned by the question, the company declared 10% of final dividend. So we have to find out how much is the total investment by the ordinary share capital, and we times out with the dividend rate declared. Therefore, we have a total 65,000. These both interim and final dividend of ordinary share capital will be reported under statement of changes in equity, as it is a distribution of the company's profit. Whereas for the final dividend of RPSC, we have to find the amount of final dividend by first identifying the amount of dividend received for the RPSC holder for the year. So based on the question, the dividend rate of the RPSC has been prescribed as 7% per year. Therefore, to look up for the final dividend, we need to minus the interim dividend in order to find the final dividend, because RPSC is restricted to receive only 7% per annum out of its investment. Therefore, finally, we will have an amount of 7,980 ringgit to represent the final dividend. If you add up these two amounts, interim and final dividend, it will equal back to the 7% times with 150,000. Okay, finally, after we have do the working, we do the adjustment in the statement of changes in equity. So we report it as under the reduction of retained earning. Finally, we compute the closing balance, and these two closing balance will be reported in the statement of financial position. Share capital will record the amount of ordinary share capital, while the reserve will report the amount for retained profit. So remember, we just have to do the summary. That's all.